Welcome, everyone. And on behalf of Robert and Terry Kaufman, I guess folks are calling in. Are we good to go? Okay. I think we're good to go. But again, Terry, Robert, Carol, and myself are pleased to coordinate our time together today. And we thought we'd begin by introducing ourselves. So let us know your name and the location you're calling from. And we'll start with anyone who's calling in internationally. Maybe not. Okay, we'll start with the Eastern time zone. So anyone in the Eastern time zone. So I guess we'll start it off. I'm Steve Ventola, and we're calling from Atlanta, and Carol's here.
Hi, everyone.
So you can state your name and the location for those in the Eastern time zone.
And right next door, this is Robert Kaufman, and Terry is not in the same room, but she's definitely here with me.
And this is Bill and Linda Bain in Atlanta.
And also Millie Holiday from Atlanta.
Right.
And this is Gordon McFarland. I'm not from Atlanta. Burlington, Vermont.
All right. Okay. Moving to the Central time zone. And just no one's moving.
Alan Geisinger from Central Texas.
Great. Okay, Mountain time zone.
Don Beard and Shirley Malin from Fort Collins.
Suzanne from the Rocky Mountains.
Robert Merriman, Denver, Colorado.
And Mary Janik, Denver.
Endell Pittman, Fort Collins, Colorado.
Okay. You're doing pretty well introducing yourself. And the Pacific time zone.
Daniel Carter, Oregon.
Okay.
John,
Hi, it's Anne here. Just reminding everybody to mute your microphone, like Lucille. That'll help out.
Gloria Rubin, Desert Hot Springs, California.
Hi, Gloria. Lucille, did you hear Anne to mute your line? Can you mute your line? Maybe she can't hear us. Well, let's continue on. We're great to have this time together. And when we were gifted with the opportunity to share and to coordinate our Temple of Light service, the first thing we did, actually, Terry and Robert invited us over for dinner. And we had dinner, and we didn't mention about what we were going to do, what we were going to say. We just shared our friendship together. And then the next night, I had a chance to share with friends, with Carol and myself also. And the next morning, I woke up with a thought in mind of how there's just an ease with friendship. So these words came to mind in light of that. I thought I'd share it to begin our time. Friendship. The ease of love shared. The ease of love shared opens the door to friendship. It is not they or me, or even them and us, or even you or me. It is the ease of love shared. Letting go of the of they, them, me, us, you, me, brings a sense of love shared, a sense of oneness. As there is this sense of oneness, comes the ease of love shared. Relax in love. Know, love sees, love forgives, love makes all things new. Let love have its way. Let's let the ease of love be shared.
Hi, everyone. Okay, a few weeks ago, John and Pam Gray provided the Tone of Life service, and it really struck a chord with me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I think I read that transcript a few times. They both emphasized that we're in a cycle that we need to see through. John likened it to the fourth quarter of a football game, and that now more than ever, we need to play our hearts out to steward the fulfillment of this process that all of us have been in for so many years. So today, we're going to read a transcript of Martin's that follows perfectly what John and Pam conveyed. The title is Excerpt from This Generation. The four of us found that it was just what we needed to hear at this juncture. And we wanted to share it with all of you because we think you'll feel the same way. We've divided it up into 3 segments. I'm going to start it off. Terry Kaufman will follow me and Robert Kaufman will follow her. So these are Martin's words from December 26, 1962. I have emphasized the fact before that the change must come in one generation. It could be presumably any generation, as long as human beings exist on Earth. If they leave it too long, of course, there will not be any generations left. But it must come in one generation, though human beings have a comfortable idea that somehow or other the next generation may be more successful. That which has to be experienced is what has been defined as a change of polarity. Fallen human beings are polarized with respect to the mass consciousness of humanity. Divine man is polarized in divine consciousness. If we take just one person and consider this changeover, we recognize that there must be a transition. Everyone starts off in wrong polarity. There must be movement through an experience to right polarity. It is not something that is done instantly, but unless it is done in that person while he lives, it is just not done. Isn't that right? After he is dead, there is no more chance for that person. And as we multiply one person by whatever number is required, we will say 144,000. Then it must happen in those 144,000 individuals during the course of their life. Otherwise, it does not happen. If the attitude is taken, well, we'll do it just so far. We couldn't possibly go all the way, but our children will then carry on from there. We delude ourselves because the children are only blessed, only receive a blessing if the generation who are the parents carry through. Otherwise, they are left betwixt and between. They are neither one thing or the other. They do not have the evidence made manifest of the divine state, and they do not have the experience, to the same degree at least, of the fallen state. There is perhaps the tendency to consequently take things for granted and to lack appreciation for that which is, to the extent that it is. They have not been through the harsh, I was going to say reality. I suppose it should be unreality of the fallen state, and they have not been offered the experience of the divine state if those of the previous generation have not carried through. It must be done in one generation, because if the generation who were in the process of carrying through do not, then the children
Okay, where did we leave you off, or where did we get muted there?
Yeah, I would say go back a few sentences, Steve. Cal.
Okay. Okay, and as we multiply one person by whatever number is required, we will say 144,000. Then it must happen to those 144,000 individuals during the course of their life. Otherwise, it does not happen. If the attitude is taken, well, we'll do it just so far. We couldn't possibly go all the way, but our children will then carry on from there. We delude ourselves because the children are only blessed, only receive a blessing if the generation who are the parents carry through. Otherwise, they are left betwixt and between. They are neither one thing or the other. They do not have the evidence made manifest of the divine state, and they do not have the experience, to the same degree at least, of the fallen state. There is perhaps a tendency to consequently take things for granted and to lack appreciation for that which is, to the extent that it is. They've not been through the harsh, I was going to say reality, I suppose it should be unreality of the fallen state, and they have not been offered the experience of the divine state if those of the previous generation have not carried through. It must be done in one generation, because if the generation who were in the process of carrying through do not, then the children or succeeding generation have to start all over again. The idea that the hope is in the children is nonsense. The idea that the succeeding generation offers the hope is foolishness. It is the generation that is here now that offers the hope. It is now that is the appointed time. It is the only time we have. If in one generation there are those who do carry through and there are children associated with that generation, then that is a different matter, because they will have the manifest experience of the divine state at that point, and they know what it is then. But if it has not been made manifest, they do not know what it is. And they will find that they have to go down into Egypt again and come clear all over again, if they are going to do it, that is. There has always been a block with respect to the fulfillment of the divine plan. And that block has been just one generation, never anymore, just one generation. We can take the attitude, well, we'll do our best, we'll go as far as we can, but it will not get the job done. And another generation, if one is on hand, will have to start all over again. You've been through some experience to bring you to this point, to enable you to emerge from the fallen state to the extent that you have. It has been quite a journey, hasn't it, to bring you to this point? You have had many experiences, passed through many things. You've known clearings of various sorts. All that has been put into you, so to speak. This is the Lord's investment in you. We cannot bequeath it to someone else, can we? It is something that happened to us, not to anyone else. We cannot just take it out of ourselves and put it in our children. If they are going to share it, they must experience it too. There isn't anything vicarious in this process. We have to know it for ourselves. And therefore, we must come all the way through if our lives are to have meaning, which is the divine purpose. If we do not come all the way through, we fall short. That is what is called sin, by the way, falling short of the mark. If there is a falling short, it is so much waste, isn't it? There has been development and development working out through us, and we just didn't make it. Well, if we didn't make it, we didn't make it. And what might have been on the basis of our restoration was not experienced, gone. And all that went into our lives to make it possible for us to experience the restoration is wasted because we are gone. This is something that must work out in one generation. Otherwise, it doesn't. It will not evolve there because it is not a matter of evolving through human self-activity. Human beings have been doing that, but that never achieves the goal. It never gets anywhere except to ultimate annihilation. It is something new. Our master himself revealed this when he came. He let it be done in 30 years, one generation as far as he was concerned. So he revealed that it could be done in one generation. He also incidentally revealed that it must be done in one generation, although that has not been so clearly seen. Look at all the generations we have had since, and still it is not done insofar as human beings generally are concerned, because there has not been a recognition of this one fundamental principle. It is not a matter of evolving in human self-activity so that we become better self-active human beings. That is not the goal at all. The goal is to become divine beings, and we cannot become divine beings as long as we remain self-active. It is a matter of moving through the transition from the control of the devil to the control of God. And when God controls, when the divine consciousness is accepted, then the divine state can appear as a result. As long as the devil controls, then the fallen state must appear as a result. No matter how much progress may be made in self-activity, the fallen state must remain. Conflicts will continue until the final conflict somewhere along the way.
The statement was made by our master to the effect that except the days should be shortened, no flesh shall be saved. Now that has generally been translated to mean that there was going to be such an appalling state of destructiveness on earth that unless we curtailed everybody, that unless that were curtailed, everybody would destroy everybody else. So this period of awful destructiveness, when human beings were in such tribulation, would have to be shortened so that somebody survived. Well, there might be some application in that sense, but we may also see that the days must be shortened in the sense of one generation. Unless the days are shortened in that sense, no flesh shall be saved. Unless the change, the transition, the restoration comes with respect to an adequate body of human beings in one generation. Wherever that generation may be, no flesh shall be saved, because there isn't any other way by which flesh may be saved. It is the acceptance of the divine control, in actual fact, of a sufficient number of responding ones, which allows the divine control to begin to manifest as a reality on earth, something which human beings have not experienced. They do not know what that would be. They have no idea that such a thing is even possible for the most part. They certainly have no comprehension of what would happen if it was so. What would happen if divine action began to appear on earth because there was a form through which it could appear? there simply has not been such a form, except here and there on an individual basis since man fell. So human beings have no awareness of what it would be. And the results, which would be the natural result, the natural consequence of the divine control working, are therefore considered as being fantastic. From the standpoint of human self-activity, such results could never appear in a million years. But from the standpoint of divine activity, they could appear in one generation. But there could be no divine activity in this sense, no transfer of the divine control, until there are those who are willing to accept it. Because there have been no adequate instruments of such acceptance, there has been no experience of what the consequences would be. If we are letting our lives be dedicated to this divine purpose of the restoration, we must experience it within ourselves first. It is not as though we could say, well, we have a vision of this, the restoration, the goal. We see how wonderful it would be. God's power is adequate. We believe that. Therefore, somehow or other, because we have this vision and understanding, it's all going to work out successfully. It is not. If it works out successfully, it has to work out through someone. And if our dedication is genuine, we are saying it must work out through us. And in that actual experience, the reality begins to be known. Divine activity, the power of God manifesting on earth to make possible that which naturally appears in consequence. We do not have to concern ourselves with that which is to appear. That takes care of itself. All we have to concern ourselves with is letting the experience be known to us under the dominion of God. Because man has been functioning in the fallen state, there has been no available instrument for divine use. The power of God has been entirely excluded in the truly creative sense. But such as has been available, such as has been able to appear, has had to appear through the fallen consciousness of human beings. The life force that is moving through people, that is, the power of God, is under the control of the fallen consciousness of human beings. And consequently, it has kept everything in a turmoil. The very moment there begins to be something which is under God's control, the power of God can begin to move through that in a creative sense. There begins to be a shift. And we are here to share in letting that shift take place actually. But unless we ourselves experience what it means to be under the dominion of God, unless we ourselves begin to discover and consequently experience what it means to function on the basis of divine consciousness, we cannot share in that which needs to be done. Shall that which has been experienced through us and through others over these past years, bringing us all to this point, be allowed to go for nothing? It is not just a matter of the number of years a person may have been associated with this ministry in the conscious sense. It is the number of years a person has been on earth, moving toward this point of conscious recognition of all these things, for all experiences have been used. Each one of you has come through cycles which are distinct and individual to you, and all these things have brought you together here. Not only you who are here present today, but also who are but all who are here in our ministry in actual fact to this hour. How much investment the Lord has in us then? Investment which can either come to fruition or be written off. The Lord is pretty accustomed to writing it off. It might be a change for him if it was allowed to come to fruition, if there was an actual willingness to carry through to the point of fulfillment. Not personal fulfillment in the sense of something which the individual thinks would be pleasing to himself, but fulfillment in the sense of being absolutely under the dominion of the Spirit of God. Whatever might occur thereafter, to what extent is that true of you now? How free are we? How much dominion does the truth have in us actually? All of you know that it should be so. All of you feel that you are dedicated to this purpose. But does it go beyond the theory, really? Sometimes a human being will have something in mind that he would like to do. And if that is suggested, oh yes, I'll go right into it, wonderful. But if it is something else that he does not consider as being too desirable, and it meant that he was not moving into what he wanted to move into, then what? Is it what we ourselves personally want to do that is important? Or is it the need in the ministry of the Lord important? What needs to be done? That is the important thing. Whether we want to do it or not is beside the point. And if we have such wants anymore, it is obvious that we are not yet sufficiently under the control of the divine consciousness.
We are here to fill the needs of the moment. We are not in the divine state in the external sense. Of course not, because there has been no cause for it to be here yet. We have to establish the cause first. And thereafter, the divine estate will appear. And that no doubt will be very wonderful. But in the meantime, it is not here. And we have to function on the basis of the things that are here, filling the needs that are here without question as to whether it's personally pleasing or not. Is this the thing that is needed in the Lord's ministry, in the fulfillment of the divine purposes? That is the question. And it is in the filling of the needs of the Lord's service, no matter what they are, that we find our joy. That is where the joy is. The joy is not in doing what we would like to do, but in doing that which is needful in the fulfillment of the divine purposes. And when we begin to do that consistently, we begin to find the secret of joy. Our master said that he would give his joy, didn't he? And what was his joy? To do the will of him that sent him, to do what was necessary in the fulfillment of the divine purposes. Even if, as it worked out, it was necessary for him to go through all that he did. It is in that we find true joy, because we begin to find ourselves under the dominion of God. We begin to find ourselves participating in the instrument for divine activity, so that the power of God may work creatively on earth to bring forth fruit, divine fruit. It will not restore the world to the divine state in a moment. How many years do you think it might take? We will not question that. But the very moment that the power of God begins to work creatively on earth, because there is a means for its manifestation, the issue begins to be forced. And consequently, the days are shortened. The answer comes quickly. Human beings are forced to make their choices. In one generation, the restoration can become a reality, not in the sense that it's the final manifestation necessarily, but the restoration nonetheless. Because the cause is established. How long will it take for that to work itself out so as to cover the earth? That's something which need not particularly concern us. Our concern is to let the cause be established, because we know that when it is there, the results are sure in the cycles and the seasons of the Lord. And the cause is established as we ourselves have the experience in no other way. Only as we ourselves know what it means to be under the dominion of God in the expression of our lives do we share in allowing any creative expression of God's power. Thinking about it, theorizing about it, imagining things, accomplishing nothing. It is only when it is done that the fulfillment comes. Our master spoke some words when he was hanging on the cross. He said, "It is finished." It was done insofar as he was concerned, and the fulfillment came, didn't it, for him? We need to be able to say, it is finished. There is no adequate group of human beings in any generation since the fall of man that has been in a position to say that. A lot of things left undone, half done. Well, here we are in the world as it is. Can it be said of our generation? There is quite a scope to a generation. But shall it be said of our generation that they finished the work which had been given to them to do? When that can be said, the restoration will be a reality. The cause will have been established, and the results will appear. I've been thinking a lot about this power that is spoken of, and in fact, even implied throughout the service that is given. The power is, it's been sort of an elusive thing, I think, in many of our thinking, particularly in mine, and yet it's really a common thing. When Terry and Steve and I and Carol would get together, as Steve said at the beginning, there was incredible power just in our being together. I mean, it's a remarkable thing. We happen to live close together. So I'd like to give a few examples of just exactly what I'm getting at. I mean, there is great joy in being available. With the dominion of the Lord in our hearts, but being available to the world. And I'm thinking of various people that I work for, some of my clients. There's this little lady who, she's having I designed a remodel for her home, and she had this concrete porch slab that needed to be taken out. So she asked the carpenters, how much of an extra charge are you going to charge me to take that out? I don't know, it's like $400 or $500. Well, she didn't quite like that one. So the next day the carpenter showed up and it was gone. And not only was it gone, it was stacked in the dumpster. She'd done it. This lady is so excited and feeling the power of this project. And I feel it. I mean, it inspires me. It inspired me all the way through the design process. It's inspiring. The carpenters never stopped talking about what she did. And there's another one I want to mention. Just these things touch my heart. And I'm getting an echo here. These things really touch my heart. A couple that I designed a remodel for 13 years ago. Well, they called me back 6 years ago, but just a few months ago, they called me. Rob had he'd gotten Lou Gehrig's disease, however one expresses that. And at this point, he's fairly far along. He's confined to a wheelchair. And his wife dearly wanted to help him through this process. And so she contacted me. We are creating a ramp, a long ramp that goes from the back porch down to the ground level. And we're going to be putting in a patio, and we're going to be putting in a whole area that Rob can get to by himself. And here's the interesting thing. Rob has all kinds of ideas. He doesn't want to have any railings, So I'm forced to make sure that the codes are all that we meet the codes and that we meet this basic safety. But on the other hand, we're going to make this work. We're going to fill this in a way that he can feel as free as he needs to, and yet it will be under budget as well. But what I'm realizing is that all of these people are feeling the same power that we are feeling. We don't know what the camp of the saints, which is a phrase coming from one of the services that Bill sent out beginning of the month. We don't know what's going to constitute that camp. But I dare say we're seeing what it was filled with, the energies that flow and help to inform a new beginning in this world. That this is happening. And I'm 74 years old, so I'm glad that it's happening finally in my generation. We're all older, but there is plenty of time. Time is a different element. There's plenty of time right now because it's sparkling all around us. Anyway, I just wanted to say that it's been on my mind for the last few days. And the experience I've had with Terry and Stephen Carroll has just really brought this out. We have been able to allow this to give ourselves just another boost in enthusiasm, in just a reality check, something very beautiful. And I wanted to share that with you. I would call on anyone now who's joined us to make a comment as you wish. We would love to hear what you have to say.
I witness here the ease of love being shared, as Steve first mentioned. My experience is that disease boils down to a lack of ease, and happy is healthy. Well, how do we get there? We talked about one generation. I sense that the one generation is my generation. It can happen here, now. The Master proved that in 3 days. His beloved John did it in 99 years. It took him a little longer, but he got there. Well, what's this flesh that needs to be saved? This soul substance, this life force, this divine consciousness. I've learned that I've been around for a few incarnations. And one of the principles and reasons to do that is to collect the soul substance that I left behind before. The Lord wants all of it to be brought back to the storehouse. All substance, angelic and soul. We're here to do that. So I find ever 24/7, I have the opportunity to ascend in place. I don't need to croak first. I don't need to be freed from the soul to get there. Moreover, I want to take the soul there, and I'm not in a hurry, because we incarnate, we ascend in place. We can ascend in place. That's what was exampled for us. We can do that. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. I work every day for the abundance of my big mouth to speak the heart of God. Do that, and ascending substance happens in a jiff. So I appreciate this hour with you and this opportunity to voice the ineffable, the unspeakable. We do it in our bumbling ways, as I example, and we get it done. Thank you for this blessed hour.
One of the points that was mentioned, partly in what you said, Pendel, thank you very much, and in the service, was this matter of clarification. And as I look around at all our gray hair and salt and pepper hair, etc., we can easily join that statement. We've been through a lot. And look how glorious we are, having been through a lot. We can put a stake in the ground, put a stamp on it. It's okay to be going through things. That's how you get where you're going. And now that we are strengthened by our past lives, our current lives are strong and true and have one purpose only. The blessing of hearing these words and being entrained by these words so that we know what they mean is literally beyond words. And this is the end game. I have been so aware of that, the end game. This is it, folks. And because of our training, that I know there is a delicious, strong love within us all that would have nothing else happen but finish it in this generation. And I stand strongly and straight with all of you in that. Yes, this generation, my Lord, it shall be done. Thank you.
I love that, Laura. Delicious, strong response. Just was so grateful for the choice that the four of you prepared and offered so beautifully to us today. I think it's a wonderful culmination of all the work that's being done. You know, I cannot think of another generation that has been so richly blessed than this generation. The fact that we have had the comfort of the truth offered to us, in that we've had the opportunity to allow the mind to come to a point of realization, so that the next phase of absolute assurance is a place where we can rest. And the 7 steps are not just a mental concept then, but they become just such a living reality to our momentary living. I have a friend visiting me from out of town this weekend, and so we've been watching old Turner Classic movies because they have an essence of sweetness to them that movies nowadays just don't seem to have. And we watched Casablanca, which I'd never seen because I grew up in South Africa with no TV, you know, so I never saw all those old movies. Anyway, there was a line in Casablanca which I thought was superb, and that was, what happens to three people is actually inconsequential compared to the grand scheme of things and what can be done for the whole. And, you know, for me now in this generation, what happens individually is of no consequences, but what we can do for the greater whole. We are the ones who offer intercession for the body of mankind. You know, we are the ones who offer forgiveness to those who have not been as blessed as we have been blessed. Mm-hmm. There is so much that every morning should be a joy to live again, you know, and I'm with you, Pendel, you know, that here we are, we can gaze upon one another. What a magnificent thing that we know a point of agreement. There are 19 locations. I don't know how many people, but 19 locations where we are in agreement. We offer this to the Lord with such thankfulness. And I cannot just sit back and say, well, others can do it. But I'm so grateful for those who have put themselves on the line to make this precious time available to us so that we can be about the Lord's business.
Well, I would like to offer my deepest thanksgiving to all of you who have spoken so far, and those who haven't, because we are here together to do this in this day. And I've been thinking about the joy I have with the younger generation, not because I'm expecting them to take care of things, but because I love the response that I find in a lot of younger people. And an example of that was in our last trip down to the desert this winter. We really consolidated a beautiful friendship that we just initiated the year before, and we met the same family down there in the Sonoran Desert in Arizona. And something has just deepened to the point where they came and visited with us on their return trip to Pennsylvania. They just left a few days ago, and it's a mom and dad who are both 41 years old and their 10-year-old son. And I love the innocence of this young son. So that's how our relationship began. I met them last year, and I met the little boy, and I said, wow, I love the quality of this young man and the precocious attitude. I'd love to meet his parents. He must be brought up with some beautiful quality parents. And so that's how we got started. And we had a most wonderful visit. They came in their RV, and they're full-timers. They live in it. They homeschool their son in this, but they stayed with us. And the young mother,
Enough already, sure.
Hello? I'm sorry. Okay, I'm trying. Is it okay if I carry on? Anyway, this young mother, she was so responsive to me. She wanted to learn everything about the way we live. And she cooked with me, and we shopped together. And we even shared a beautiful little fancy tea party, which the kid loves when he comes into the house and he sees all the antiques I have from family and so on, just because I love to honor that quality in my living. And we had a most precious time. And I love what was brought forth about we can't expect the next generation to do it because I'm already in position to do it, but I can share that. I can let it be moved into that next generation, just as with my beautiful son, which I don't think he's on the line today, but he has that same quality which he carries and is offering to his own offspring, as well as his younger bride. It's just the way the generation is increased. It's a generation of substance. It's not just physical age, but it's the substance of living and that love of which was so beautifully spoken. And I love what we share together as a group here. I feel it and I get excited when I hear you speak, because that is the generation of the substance that we came to do together. Thank you all. You're just wonderful to be with.
It was a very rich exercise listening to the readings. And paying attention to my own mind as it was being compelled to really listen deeply and follow every sentence, every phrase, every paragraph, and move with a conscious presence throughout. And recognizing the tendencies in mind to, in very subtle ways, drift off and lose a phrase here or there, which is somewhere in the background in a subconscious way, but not to the foreground, and allowing things to be fully and completely connected and vibrant. But nonetheless, the exercise is tremendous to move through and sustain, regardless of my mind's antics, the generation of the hour as we proceed. And then our power went off here. So we lost the internet, we lost everything in terms of a connection. And then it finally came back on again as Robert was speaking. In September of 2018, we met with John Gray in Stillmeadow in Oregon. And we also had a visit with Daniel Cartwright at that time in Portland. It seemed like a seminal event. Almost like what happened with my mind in following the reading, where there would be maybe little gaps that would occur, and meeting up John and myself and a few others was like bridging a gap of vacancy in time and in unified generation, and bringing it together in one place again. And when the gap was restored and connected, there was a flow through of remembrance of the generation that had been absolutely embraced and was so precious, and yet by reason of circumstances, there was a gap in the thinking and the feeling and the moving together. And then the gap was closed and memory began to be restored in a much more full way amongst a number of us. I remember about a week later, there was a service given, and John's portion of that service was called Return on Archangelic Investment. The return on archangelic investment is my life. And that was the emphasis of that time, of the investment that had been made. And that there was evidence of this in the return on this investment through individual living. And I've watched over the last 3 years or so, the return of that investment accruing in our midst, you know, where each one of us has been stepping forward and saying, this, my life, is the return to this point of the investment that has been made in this incarnation. And so every day for me, I wake up and I check the nature of the polarity, which allows the generation to be absolutely sustained, no matter what appearances there may be in mind and heart. What it is that is actually being maintained of true polarity, because that's the important thing relative to the continuing unified generation, is that polarity is absolutely true. And then it doesn't matter what comes and goes in the mind in the moment or in the heart, even if it may be disturbance or a gap, polarity is maintained. And the polarity relates to the love to finish the work of this incarnation, the generation of my life, in relationship to all of yours. And it's no longer just being told by somebody else that this is the reason why I'm here, but it's actually coming forth through me, through you. This is where I need to be. This is what I must do. I'm not doing it because Martin told me, and he's leading us all forth, but I'm doing it because I know that this is absolutely vital and it's mine to do. And then I look out and there's all of you, and we all know the same thing. And so we have a unified vision. There are people who have been maintaining polarity over all these years in the one generation. It's very fulfilling when we actually come forth in our own way, you know, acknowledging that and speaking what is ours to speak, and have absolutely no doubt about it. It's assured in me, and it's assured in whoever has the opportunity to speak. So I've really appreciated the opportunity to listen to the content of this paper and let it be magnified. Thank you for your work in bringing it to us.
Yes, I would join that thanksgiving as well. The Lord's investment cannot fail. There was no mistake of our incarnation individually. I know it's taken various forms in our remembrance of that, but the point is we remembered. We're here and now, we remembered, and we're here, and it lands so deeply, that responsibility. And it's to come right into that focus individually, step right into that focus. And I so appreciated the differentiation of spirit of the four of you as you stepped into that focus. And Steve, you brought the essence of friendship, and that is why we have been drawn together. We have remembered, we've done our work spiritually, and that friendship drew all of these lines of others that have remembered all these years together. And here we are in this configuration. And Carol, your enthusiasm when you read those words, you stepped into that. I love that. And Terry, your clarity of spirit as you read those words. And Bob, your wisdom of making those words manifest in your life as an architect and all the people that you touch. And all of us speaking what is ours to do. That's the generation, that's the personal generation. I don't think of it so much as a timeline of generation. You know, they said the greatest generation. No, it's the generation of substance, and the substance individually and the substance collectively. And certainly that rings true today. And my thanksgiving for all of the generation here present in its individual form is tremendous.
Yeah, I too want to thank Robert and Terry and Steve and Carol for letting this all come together today. Martin spoke about the power, and there's always power when someone's willing to let something come to focus. The power is in the focus. That's why there's always a sharp end at the edge of a nail. It's something, but it could be something of a platitude, but we've said in times past, something comes to point. And this certainly is the reason for our coming together, is to let something of power be generated and sustained. I appreciated Martin's mention of the fact that something only really lasting happens when there are those who follow through. I'm not a golfer, but I have heard a lot about the theory of golf and how golfers generate power in their swing. And one of the ways, of course, is just the whole technique of it and the twisting of the hips. But it's the follow through. Those who generate the most power are those who can follow through completely. And so I'm glad to be together with all of you, with all that the Lord's invested in us over the years, and be at the point where we are vividly aware of what our purpose is together. As you were reading today, I thought of the words, "For this cause came I into the world." And I have no doubt that that's in the hearts of each one. For this cause came I into the world. And there's nothing haphazard about the fact that we've become conscious of each other and what we're doing together. And the fact that along the way, going back 30, 40, 50 years ago, there were two men, Yolanda and Martin, who knew what the purpose of man was and who shared that purpose with anyone who was interested. And now we come to the point, I'm guessing most of us are in our 60s and 70s, we come to the point where there's a much more vivid awareness of what our purpose is. I think back 30, 40 years ago, and I think, well, I heard a lot of words, a lot of beautiful words, and I had a lot of theory. But now we're beyond theory. And now it's at the point where we know, for this cause came I into the world, to be in the very circumstances that I'm in, with the very people that I relate to let something greater happen, and to extend an invitation to others to be a part of this divine control. Through the years, Linda and I have known Robert and Terry and Steve and Carol, and we've gone through a lot together. And Millie, sorry, Millie, right? And Millie.
All lost in the time.
Sorry, Millie, you weren't one of the initial readers, but yes, Millie. The seven of us have known each other for
30
what?
years.
At least 30 years. And we've been through a lot together. And I can see how we've all come through various phases, which have brought us to the point of appreciating the relationship that we have, and the reason why we relate together in a certain way. It's become a much, much deeper relationship as we've become aware of what we're here to do. So again, Robert and Terry, Steve and Carol, thank you for stepping forward and starting this off today, and for each one who has added to this. And I feel the power increase as each one speaks. There's great power in the fact that each one has an awareness of why we're here. So thank you again, the four of you, and all of you for being here.
Thank you, Bill. We can feel the power that's at hand right now, and we respect that power, and we hold it, and we let the changes occur that need to occur, that allowed us to do other things besides the will of the Lord on earth. I took note of those words, like, what does the Lord need me to do now? And let them come to heart, and let there be a realization of what it actually means. And for each of us. I thought we'd end our time with a prayer that I like to bring together. O Lord, thy power at hand. They bring tears to our eyes and affirm it in our hearts that thy will may be done here on earth. And as John mentioned a few weeks ago, that we are in the fourth quarter. We're in the fourth quarter of our lives, and we're in the fourth quarter of thy will being done on earth. And we affirm, we consecrate our hearts that it shall be done. As Robert was mentioning, it shall be done as we know our place in the camp of the saints. And those of us gathering in this Temple of Light services are leaders in the camp of the saints. Leaders to let thy message be sounded, thy trumpet call be sounded, that all may with ears, with eyes to see, they come and see and drink of the waters of thy love. That our hearts be at rest. Let us continue to know the oneness of our friendship. That thy strength, thy presence, and thy glory may be revealed. All for thy light, beauty to be shared in all the earth. All for thy glory. Amen. Okay. It's a pleasure to share with you all. We'll see you in about a month there.